Do you honestly expect me to eat this? Linda's voice dripped with disdain as she glared at the plate I set in front of her. I had spent my morning making pasta, hoping for a quiet, pleasant lunch. Instead, her scowl made my stomach churn. Before I could respond, she grabbed the plate. "This is disgusting," she declared, tossing it unceremoniously into the trash. I froze, stunned by her audacity. "What are you doing?" I demanded, my voice trembling with restrained anger. Linda didn't flinch. "If it's inedible, it belongs in the trash," she replied, her lips curling into a smirk. Then, as if to add insult to injury, she reached for a pack of instant noodles. She had no idea that this small, petty act would mark a turning point. "My name is Anna. I'm a 35-year-old stay-at-home mom with a full house, and plenty of stories to tell. My husband, Jack, and I share our lives with our two lively boys, Ryan and Noah, at 6 and 4. They keep me on my toes every second of the day. Jack and I met years ago at a party hosted by mutual friends. It's funny, we always joke that, as a nurse and a doctor, we should have met in a hospital instead of over chips and salsa." Jack's charm and easygoing nature made me feel at ease from the start. Despite being 3 years older, he had this youthful energy that made our conversation sparkle. Our whirlwind romance turned into a marriage within a year, and soon, we were navigating parenthood together. Life moved fast. Ryan arrived, then Noah 2 years later. I left nursing to focus on our family while Jack took on the role of sole provider. Jack's gratitude never wavered. "You're the glue holding this family together," he often tells me, his words a balm after long, chaotic days. Our small apartment began to feel cramped as the boys grew, so we decided to build our dream home. After months of planning and searching, we finally had a blueprint for a spacious house where the boys could run freely. During New Year's, we shared the exciting news with Jack's parents, Tom and Mary, over dinner, but they had their own surprise. "We're considering moving to a senior living community," Tom announced. "It'll be easier for us in the long run." Unfortunately, their chosen facility had a 6-month waiting list. That's when Jack came up with an idea. "Why don't we all live here temporarily?" he suggested. "Our house will take 6 months to finish too. It'll save us rent, and we can help you out while we're here." Tom and Mary agreed, and soon, our family packed up and moved into Jack's childhood home. The boys were ecstatic. With a sprawling yard and more space than they'd ever known, they raced upstairs to claim their room and then bolted outside to explore. Their laughter filled the crisp air, a sound that warmed my heart. But the moment didn't last. "Keep it down, I'm trying to sleep." A sharp, irritated voice cut through the joy like a blade. A disheveled woman appeared at the window, her tangled hair and sour expression framing her glaring eyes. "Sis, seriously?" Jack snapped, stepping forward protectively. "Your loud kids are seriously annoying," Linda shot back, folding her arms. It was Jack's sister, Linda, a name I hadn't heard in years. I thought she lived elsewhere, but apparently, she'd been staying here all along. "That's enough, Linda," Tom interjected firmly. "You don't need to yell at the children." With a huff, Linda retreated to her room, leaving the kids shaken and quiet. Tom knelt down to reassure them. "You've done nothing wrong," he said gently. "Kids are supposed to play and have fun." Mary jumped in with a smile. "How about some snacks and tea?" The promise of cookies was enough to lift their spirits. Later that evening, Jack cornered his parents with the question that had been burning in his mind. "Does Linda ever leave the house?" Mary hesitated. "Not much," she admitted. "She's been here ever since she quit her job. She keeps to herself most of the time." I glanced toward Linda's closed door. The tension was already palpable, and we hadn't even been here a full week. I couldn't shake the feeling that this temporary arrangement was about to become anything but simple. Living under the same roof as Linda was proving more difficult than I had anticipated. That evening, as we gathered for dinner, her absence at the table was glaring. "Should we call her down?" Jack asked, glancing toward the stairs. Tom sighed, his voice weary. "She doesn't want to eat with us. It's been like this for a while." Apparently, Linda preferred to wait until everyone else was done before coming down, a routine she had maintained for years. While being a recluse wasn't inherently a problem, her earlier outburst at the kids lingered in my mind, unsettling me. "I had no idea my sister was still living here," Jack said later, his tone apologetic. "I'm sorry about this." I tried to reassure him, and myself, that this was only temporary, but unease settled in my chest as I braced for the challenges ahead. The next morning, after dropping the kids off at kindergarten and seeing Jack off to work, I returned to a quiet house. It wasn't until noon that Linda emerged, shuffling into the living room. Her expression shifted to surprise the moment she spotted me. "Why are you here?" she asked bluntly. I blinked, confused by her question. "What do you mean? You're still staying?" she pressed, her tone accusatory. It dawned on me that she might not have been informed about our living arrangement. "Didn't Mary and Tom tell you?" I asked. "Tell me what?" she snapped, her eyes narrowing. Taking a steadying breath, I explained, "We moved in yesterday. We'll be staying here for a few months while our house is being built." I added cautiously, "I hope we can get along." Her reaction was immediate and explosive. "What?" Linda's fists clenched as her voice rose. "No one told me, you just showed up, and now we're all stuck together? Get out, now." Her shouting was so loud that Mary came rushing into the room. "Linda, what's going on?" she asked, her voice edged with concern. "Why didn't you tell me they were moving in?" Linda yelled. "I don't want to live with her, or her noisy kids." I bit back my frustration, reminding myself to stay calm. "I'm sorry, Linda, we'll try not to disturb you," I said, bowing my head slightly in a gesture of peace. But Linda wasn't finished. Her voice dripped with venom as she continued. "You think you're better than me, don't you? Just because you married a doctor." "That's enough, Linda," Mary interrupted, her tone firm. "There's no need for that." Linda turned on her mother, her face twisted with fury. "Oh, don't act like you're so innocent. You probably wish Jack was your only child." "That's not true," Mary said softly, though the hurt was clear in her eyes. "Don't lie to me, you've always favored him," Linda shouted, grabbing a pack of instant noodles and stomping off to her room. As the door slammed behind her, Mary sighed heavily and turned to me. "I'm so sorry, Carolyn, she's been like this for years." Mary explained how Linda had struggled since failing her university entrance exam. Sensitive by nature, Linda had never connected well with others and had grown increasingly withdrawn and paranoid over time. She tried attending a private university but dropped out within a year. Mary continued, her voice heavy with sadness. "We encouraged her to get a job, but she always quits after a few weeks. She's been like this ever since. Tom and I are getting older, and we just don't have the strength to argue anymore." Her words weighed on me. It was clear that Tom and Mary had been quietly shouldering this burden for years. And now, by extension, so were we. That evening, Jack and I sat down with his parents to discuss Linda's situation. Jack was visibly shaken as Mary recounted the details. "I had no idea it was this bad," he admitted, running a hand through his hair. "We need to figure out how to help her." Jack decided to speak with Linda directly. Approaching her room, he knocked gently. "Linda, can I talk to you for a minute?" "What do you want?" came her muffled reply. "I just want to understand what's going on," Jack said softly. At first, she was cold and dismissive, but Jack's patience eventually coaxed her into opening up, at least a little. "It's always someone else's fault," she muttered bitterly. "I can't stand people. They're rude, selfish, and stupid." When Jack emerged from her room, he looked exhausted. "She's convinced the world is against her," he said. "Every job she's quit, it's always the same story. She blames her coworkers or the environment, but it's clear she's struggling to take responsibility for her actions." Despite the challenges, Jack didn't give up. He made time to talk to Linda whenever he could, gently encouraging her to join us for meals and spend more time outside her room. Slowly, she began to come downstairs during dinner, sitting stiffly at the table. Though the progress was small, it felt significant. Watching Linda eat with us for the first time, I caught Mary smiling quietly to herself. "Would you like some more rice, Sloane?" Mary asked gently. For the first time, Linda didn't snap. She simply nodded. It wasn't much, but it was a start. "Would you like more rice, Linda?" Mary asked gently. Linda nodded. "Yes, please, today's chicken looks good." "Here, have one of Dad's pieces," Jack offered, sliding his plate toward her. "Thank you," Linda replied, her voice softer than usual. For a moment, the tension in the room eased. Watching my in-laws interact with Linda so warmly brought a rare smile to my face. Even the boys, sensing the shift, ate their meals without hesitation. "Good work, Graham," I said, quietly appreciating his efforts to bridge the gap with his sister. He sighed, meeting my eyes. "This is just the beginning." Linda's steps toward independence were small but noticeable. She began coming downstairs during the day and even interacted with the children, though awkwardly at times. I held on to the hope that these changes marked a turning point. But it didn't last. One evening, while helping with dinner, Linda's cruel nature resurfaced. "You're bad at cooking, Carolyn," she said, her tone biting, "and honestly, not even pretty. How did you seduce Graham? Did you use your body?" Her words hit me like a slap, but I bit my tongue. Responding in anger would only fuel her venom. Instead, I focused on finishing dinner, silently praying that things would improve. They didn't. The breaking point came one afternoon when I was left alone with Linda. Sage was in the hospital, and Stanley had stepped out. "I'm hungry, Carolyn. Make me something," Linda demanded, her tone leaving no room for refusal. I reluctantly prepared a simple pasta dish and placed it in front of her. She glanced at it, her nose wrinkling in disdain. "This looks awful," she said, before picking up the plate and throwing it straight into the trash. I couldn't contain my anger any longer. "What are you doing? Throwing away food is unacceptable." Linda smirked, her tone dripping with mockery. "If it's inedible, it's garbage." She turned to grab a pack of instant noodles, her smugness unbearable. I stood there, stunned, my patience, stretched thin for months, finally snapped. That night, I recounted the incident to Jack and his parents. The words poured out, every insult, every slight, every moment of humiliation Linda had inflicted. By the time I finished, the room was heavy with disappointment. Sage sighed deeply. "We've done everything we can for her, but it's clear she doesn't want our help." Stanley nodded grimly. "It's time to move on. We can't let her drag us all down anymore." The moving day arrived sooner than expected. The movers bustled through the house, packing up the last of our belongings. Linda, oblivious as always, stumbled downstairs, rubbing her eyes. "What's going on? It's so noisy," she asked, her voice laced with irritation. Jack met her gaze calmly. "We're moving to our new house." Linda looked around, puzzled. "Why is the fridge gone?" "We sold it," Sage said, her tone sharp. Linda's confusion deepened. "Well, whatever. Pack my stuff too," she ordered flippantly. Jack's jaw tightened. He took a deep breath before asking, "Where's your house, Linda?" She blinked at him. "What do you mean? It's wherever Mom and Dad are going, right?" Stanley stepped forward, his face stern. "No, Linda, we're moving to a retirement home. You're not coming with us." Linda's eyes widened. "What? You didn't tell me that." Stanley's voice was steady, but firm. "We didn't think we needed to. Your behavior toward Carolyn was the final straw. We've supported you for years, but you've trampled on our kindness. It's time for you to stand on your own." Panic set in as Linda realized the gravity of the situation. "I can't stay here alone," she cried. "You won't be staying here," Stanley said coldly. "The house is already up for sale. You need to leave today." Tears filled Linda's eyes. "But I'll be homeless." Stanley's gaze hardened. "We've made arrangements. You can live with my brother on his farm, but you'll need to work." Linda recoiled at the idea. "I can't do that. I don't know how to farm." "The only other option is homelessness," Stanley replied bluntly. Desperation overtook her as she turned to Jack. "Please, take me with you. I'll change, I promise. Just let me come with you." Jack's expression was icy. "After everything you've done to Carolyn, to my family, I'll never forgive you. This is where we part ways. Linda, don't ever contact us again." Linda collapsed to her knees, sobbing, but no one moved to comfort her. Later, we heard that Linda had reluctantly moved to the farm, isolated, with no internet and grueling physical labor. She struggled to adapt. Meanwhile, Sage and Stanley settled happily into their retirement home, and our family embraced a fresh start in our new house. Our children laughed and played in the yard, their joy a stark contrast to the chaos we had left behind. Jack and I stood side by side, watching them, feeling a sense of peace we hadn't known in months. For the first time in what felt like forever, the future looked bright.